What we're going to be doing today is trying to focus on a couple of common scenarios that a space manager might run into in their day-to-day work. So certainly we're going to start with standing up a new building and looking at the floor plan that we were provided. We will also work with a slightly optimized version to kind of get a feel for the differences in performance there. But once that's done, we can start looking at things like answering questions for people in our organization. So somebody wants just kind of a raw floor plan around a certain area. We need to bring in a bunch of data all at once. Maybe we have somebody who's asking for the seating status around her. Next, we'll look at sort of checking all of the seating for a particular division and department globally. We can finish up with marking some seats as available by removing all their occupants. Maybe those people are going to work from home. And finally, we'll use the Max system to populate some of those seats that we just freed up. So let's come over to our system and we will dive into buildings so we can get our new building started. So on our Create Building form, we need to give ourselves a building name, and so we will give that a code and a name. There's some other things here we could fill out, address and whatnot, but the only things that are absolutely required are those two items. However, for the purposes of our demo here, we will add a picture, and there's some floors down here that we will want to add. So we're going to actually add two floors. We'll have our first floor and our second floor. So it will just sort of auto-enter a floor name there for us. So at this point, we do need to take a slight detour, just as promised. We did want to pull this drawing straight out of the email. So here's our email. We will go ahead and save that to our little demo files folder. And although I did promise we were not going to make any changes to this, I said maybe we would just drag this straight in. There are a couple of small changes that are important to make here. So just for kind of ease of use, we're going to dive into the drawing. We are going to rename a couple of layers, and we're going to just make a small change to some of the text. So all of the rest of the drawing will be left as is. So we're opening up DraftSite now. And all we need to do is bring up our layer list. We'll come to the bottom. So this interior polyline is going to end up being IDN floor. We want to come up and find SV space. This is going to be IDN space. And finally, the space name is going to be our IDN space ident. And those were off, and so another reason we wanted to come into the drawing was just to make sure that those layers are on. And so that'll give us all of our boundaries and all of our text. However, one last thing we want to do is all of the space text that is in the drawing right now is a little bit big. And because it starts to overlap with other polylines, the system will basically be asking us a bunch of questions about, hey, should this text go with this polyline or this one? And to make this easier, what we can do is just shrink all of the text kind of slightly. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to come to our quick select. We're going to say that we are looking for simple notes on the layer IDN space ident. So that'll select all of that text simultaneously. And now what we can do is we can just come over here to the size. And I think if we just put 6 inches for all of them, that shrinks everything enough that the system will not get confused. Okay, cool. So what we'll do is we'll say File Save As, because we did make a couple little changes here. And we'll say Voyager 01. So now that our drawing is prepared, we can come back here to our Create Building, and here's where we see kind of the only big slowdown we're going to see today. So what this is going to do is it's going to go through a process of analyzing the drawing. It's going to run some optimization on the drawing, and then it's basically going to prepare it for us so that we can use it seamlessly with the rest of the space management system. So on any smaller drawing, this would take like 10 seconds or something like that. I mean, even drawings that are actually very large in terms of their square footage, but are not very complex, can be done in just seconds. So this admittedly takes something like a minute and 10 seconds or something like that. So it's a little bit slow. But remember that this is only a one-time process. Or I guess I should say it's a process that you only have to do if the drawing itself is changing. So if you need to move walls or reconfigure a whole bunch of workstations or something like that, this process is something you're going to have to go through. So while this is a little bit slow, everything that happens after this is rocket fast. It's all instant. So again, anytime you need to link the drawing, if you leave it as is, it's going to take something like a minute and 10 seconds, something like that. However, what we're going to see is that when we upload the second floor, that has just been very slightly optimized and it goes quite a bit faster. But again, this is not something that you should be doing all the time, and as soon as this is done, everything else with the floor plan is going to be very fast. So there's our first floor. So let's just upload a second floor. Obviously, we're going to look at the first floor. We're going to dive in and do all sorts of stuff here in a minute. But in the meantime, let's look at this optimized version. Now, this has not been optimized very far. All we really did for this is to replace all of the regular chairs, so the chairs that are next to workstations. We replaced all of those with a simpler but similar looking block. So the original chairs had something like 5,000 draw operations for them. Now, for the CAD team, I could get a little bit more nerdy and explain exactly why that's happening. It basically has to do with the fact that the chair is drawn with a whole bunch of splines, and splines are not as efficient as things like arcs. So we did replace those chairs, and yeah, this is still pretty slow, but it is quite a bit faster than the other one. But regardless, the whole process is done now. So we have two different floors here to look at. Obviously very similar, but slightly different characteristics here. So we're ready. We entered a building name, we uploaded a picture, and we set up our two floors with the drawings. So let's go ahead and hit save. So it tells us it was created successfully, and if we come back to our list, we'll see our building right here ready for us. So clicking on that building gives us some various options. We're actually just going to go ahead and dive straight into our floor plans. So I said that everything would be instant after that link, and so now you can see that we can zoom in, we can pan around, we can do whatever we want here, and everything is instant. So no delays in terms of just navigating around the drawing. If we click on something, you'll see that it's going to tell us, hey, you didn't actually link that yet. So we haven't actually done the linkage to the database, and that's the next step we'll want to do. But in terms of just getting around the drawing now, there's no big deal. This is a pretty dense drawing, pretty large drawing, but no performance issues here. But in order to really see what we're going to be able to do, of course, we're going to need to link this to the database. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So we come into our link form. You'll see we've got two different floors here to work with. And over here on the right is where we're going to get started. So we're going to say, let's go ahead and link our floor. And because the floor was already created in that first step when we were creating the building, we just get a calculations updated of 1. And of course, that's expected. There's only one floor in this, so we are expecting to just see 1. Before we actually commit any changes to the database, anytime we're linking, though, we do want to just come back down to the results here, take a look at the area, the dimensions, make sure that these numbers make sense. If a drawing, especially if a drawing is coming from another country, it may have been drawn in metric and you think it's in inches, and so your calculations are going to be absurd. So maybe in the millions, or possibly in the other direction, it'll tell you 12 total square feet here or something like that. In any case, our floor is good. We're happy with that. Let's go ahead and also link our spaces. So that analyzes all the polylines and again looks at that text that we did resize, and it's creating 1,584 new spaces. So again, all of this just totally instant, everything is done. So just quickly, let's go ahead and do the same process for our second floor. We're going to link our floor polyline. It tells us that was successful. And once again, anytime we're linking, we should just take a look at these various things here. Like, okay, 14 square feet does sound a little bit small. Let's double click on that. Okay, so 14 square feet, 6 by 2, that seems appropriate actually for that. So it looks to me like this is all good. Let's commit those changes. And so now, when we return to our main drawing interface, you'll see that this query is loading, and actually we're able to identify that all of this space is linked. We're looking at occupancy right now, and so the information we have available is kind of limited, but we're ready now to be able to click on space and do all sorts of different things. So if we come over here to the left, we have a number of buttons here that can essentially control what is the process that we're trying to go through right now at the moment. So for example, let's go to this button here, which is categorization. So the query immediately tells us, hey, there's nothing categorized in this entire drawing. And of course, that's expected because we haven't really done anything yet. So we can click on one of these spaces, and let's go ahead and categorize this one space first. So we'll say it is a workstation, open, dedicated use. Of course, this may not match with your categories and types, but we can hit save. And again, everything is instant. So that immediately updated, we can see it in the drawing. And in fact, obviously this is going to be a bit of a slow process if we're doing this one at a time. So I'm going to hold down the shift button and I'm going to drag a window around all of these here. We could actually do this for the entire drawing if we wanted, but we actually have some data kind of pre-formatted to assign this kind of information for the floors. So let's just demonstrate with a handful here. I say a handful, I think that's probably, yeah, it's 57 records here. So again, I'm setting those to workstations. I hit save, and that's instantly done. So we could actually start, of course, printing and doing all sorts of stuff from here if we wanted. And in fact, now that we have set these to be offices, we know that they can now hold people. So come back over here to our configuration buttons and let's switch to occupancy. So what these buttons do, obviously you saw when we were on the categorization button, the queries that we're showing are related to categorization. But not only that, when you clicked on a space, you would get information over on the sidebar here that would be related to categorizing that space. So now that we've switched to occupancy, you can see that we've got some details over here to the right that are about occupancy. So square footage might be important in determining whether or not somebody can sit there, but also we have our occupancy information listed. So 0 of 1 seats are occupied. We have our seating method. Because it's marked as a workstation, it just inherits that. But if we needed to change how many seats were available for this one particular space, we can do that here. There's also an add occupant button here, so we can add people sort of one at a time through this interface here. But for our purposes today, the more efficient thing to do is going to be to come over here to the left, and you'll see that there is a little flyout button here that says list of individuals who need to be assigned to spaces. So by clicking on that, I get a list, and these are people that the system has identified as needing seating assignment. Now this is going to differ from one organization to another, but for example, if I click on this one person, let's just look at them in detail. Essentially, we can use whatever rules you guys have in order to determine whether or not people should be allocated seating. That allows us to essentially look at the full list of people and make sure that we haven't let anybody fall through the cracks. So people who are expected to have seating actually do have seating. Regardless, this is super easy. And in fact, you can move your mouse over this so that it lights up a little bit more. And we can see that it's telling us, hey, use this little button here with the personnel and use that to assign people to seats. So we can do that now. Let's click on somebody over here. We already had a space selected there, so that immediately push that person to that space. But if we want to move the rest of these people around, we can click on them one at a time. We can scroll through this list. We can search for them and assign these people very rapidly. Again, now that we've gotten through that initial linking phase, everything else should be basically instant. So let's actually kind of back out now, and let's look at kind of our scenario. So we've gotten the lay of the land here, and we're ready to kind of think about some of the tasks that we might need to do. So if somebody requests to give us or to give them a seating layout around a particular space, how are we going to do that? So obviously, this is a big floor plan. Finding that space is going to be a bit of a challenge. Now, you guys may already know where that lies just based on the space code, but we can just come up here, and if we know the whole thing, we can just paste that in. If we only knew a part of it, so just that C427 bit, we can just type part of the space code in, and it'll find it for us. And if I then hit Tab or hit Enter or just click on it, it'll zoom to that space for me. So if somebody just wanted kind of the print of this little area right here, maybe this area here, we can do that. We have not yet really set all the properties for these spaces, and again, I just want to show you that from the raw floor plan, of course, we can do printing. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can print to various different paper sizes. Because we're going to do a zoomed in view here, let's just leave that at 11 by 17. And we are not going to do a legend. We did just turn that stuff off. So we have different options here for the printing bounds. We can say print the full drawing, of course, but we also have current view or custom. Let's do a custom print, and let's say we just want to get all of these things here. Now, depending on the paper size, it may actually give us a little bit extra around the edges, and that's okay. Now again, remember that this is the unmodified version of the drawing, or at least mostly unmodified. All of those are the original blocks. Everything is, a lot less efficient than maybe we would want, but everything will still come out into this PDF for us. And of course, we can zoom in a little bit more if you want to take a closer look. Now, from our time there before, I do remember that sometimes you guys did not want to show the polylines there. So those solid black lines are the actual boundaries for these individual workstations. Let's turn that off. So we'll keep all of the same settings. Let's just hit More here and say we want to suppress the space layer. So that'll just turn off those polylines, but everything else basically should be the same. Let's come back in and take a look, and yes, those are now gone. So obviously, you could do this kind of a thing straight out of AutoCAD, but this is probably a little bit more convenient. So the more interesting stuff, of course, will come when we have a little bit more data. So that's our next scenario. What is that going to look like? Let's come back to our dashboard, and what we're going to do is we're going to import some space data, and then we're going to import some personnel data. So we have previously configured this for the demo so that we will be able to do all of the categorization, all the org stuff, all of that will be all at once. I'm going to drag in an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, well, this is what we are expecting. So we already linked the two floors. Each of them told us that there was 1,584 spaces on them, and so now you can see that our total that are going to be updated with the data that we just dragged in, 3168. So this is just another little sanity check that we have built in that tells us, hey, are we creating new records or are we updating existing rows? If this was telling us, hey, it's creating new records, we would know we had a problem here. Now, incidentally, this is sort of the simple upload. An administrator can get access to a much more detailed view of this where you can drag it in. You can see individual cells that might have problems, but this is a pre-formatted one where essentially we exported data, we filled it out, and imported it back in. So we already know that this is in good shape. And if it wasn't in good shape, it would tell us. So we're good, though. We're ready to go. We hit OK. There's a short delay here, and it has imported our space data. So just from that, of course, we could dive back into the buildings. And in fact, you'll even see it over here now, where it tells us square footages among a bunch of different categories and types there. But one last thing we want to do in order to have a slightly more complete picture is we want to import some contacts. So once again, we can drag and drop our Excel spreadsheet. And in this case, we did expect these to be new people. So these are all new folks who are going to be inserted into the contact table along with a bunch of seating. So we have 2,000 people to be spread across those 3,000 whatever spaces. So yeah, we're happy with that. Again, slight delay, it does the import. And now we're going to have way more to do with our floor plan. So let's dive back into buildings. Let's come to Voyager and just go once again straight to our floor plans. And now we can start exploring a couple of other things. So we did this upload. We now know that somebody named Anna Burke wants to have some seating checked by her. So I happen to know Anna is on the second floor here, and we'll come over to the second floor. And what's happening, of course, is that now that we have a bunch of people all over the place, we can see that there's 1,000 labels that have been put out for all of the folks in the drawing. So if I zoom in, you can see here are all of our labels for who's sitting where. We also have some highlights that are indicating whether a seat can hold more people or can't hold more people, etc. Some of the terminology here will probably change depending on what you guys call those things. Regardless, again, we're looking for somebody named Anna Burke. So let's bring up our search. We'll click on people and we'll type in Burke. And there's Anna Burke. So we have a couple of other Burkes here, but we want to find Anna. And Anna said that she wanted to know what the seating looked like all around her. So we're just going to do another print. We'll say custom. We'll select our bounds. And, maybe she wants to see, maybe she just wants to see this area right here. And so now that that is done, we can go ahead and hit print. And so we can take a look at that. And again, here is what our print looks like. So we can send this over to Anna and she can look around. So here's Anna here. Now, what about if Anna tells us that a couple of people here have moved? So let's just move a couple of folks from one seat to another. Now, of course, earlier we saw how we could click on the seat and add people manually one at a time. We also saw that we could add them from the big list of personnel, but we can also click on the individual spaces. And if somebody is here, we can click on their name and we can either just straight up remove them from seating, but we can also click this assign seating and that allows us to move them. So you can see that was just, instantaneous, super easy. Let's say that this person actually sits down here. Okay, so we could tell Anna that those people had moved. Now let's just say that Anna comes back to us and says, you know what? I was wrong about those people. Those two people actually, can you put them back? I need to, talk to their managers and figure out actually where they are. So how are we going to deal with that? If we just knew off the top of our head where those people were originally, that would be easy. But if we don't know that information, maybe a couple of days have passed, we can come to contacts, come to move history, and now you'll see that we have a complete record here of all moves. So any sort of seating change whatsoever, be it from a non-seated to seating or from one seat to another like these top people here, we get a list of that. So obviously we could just kind of print this out or write it down or remember it, but it's easier than that because all we need to do is check those two individuals. We can click on them and say undo. So we can see that our two individuals are back in their original seats now. Now, before we get into a couple of other sort of personnel-related things that we will use the drawing for, let's come back and think about another scenario. So maybe we want to check all the seating for IT kind of globally across all of our buildings. Now, doing that kind of one drawing at a time is certainly a possibility, but let's actually use our chart playground now to do that. So when we come into this chart playground, this is a little bit busy, I admit, but there's a lot of things that this can do. So basically we have a bunch of different chart bases. We have different metrics we can use. So for example, right now, what we're seeing is space by category and type. We are looking at square footage, and of course that reflects in our name up here, square feet by space category. We can change the type of chart we're looking at, and there's some other tools down here that we can fiddle with at some point. Just real quick before we actually get into what we really want to see, I should point out that almost everything here is clickable in one way or another. So for example, if we want to hide some buildings, we can do that. You can do the same thing with, in this case, the categories down here. I don't care about commercial space or primary circulation, etc. You can in fact hold down Alt and you can click on a single category here, and it will isolate that. So a couple little fun things there to find what you're looking for. But again, our scenario is, let's look at the space that is owned by IT across all of our portfolio. Now, obviously, this is a fairly small portfolio because it's sample data. But what we're doing is we are switching to division and department. We are still looking at our area totals at the moment, but we can switch that to our seating counts instead. So this is going to tell us how many seated personnel we have in all of our different buildings. Now, I did specifically say we want to talk about the IT space, right? And so we can find our IT space. Of course, we could hold down Alt down here and click on Information Technology. And now we can see how many IT spaces we have in various different buildings. Incidentally, at any time, we can print this out to an image that we could drop into a report somewhere or send off to somebody, etc. But the fun stuff comes when you start clicking on the various bars. So this is telling us that there are a total of 228 seated personnel. And we can actually look that up over here by clicking on floor plan. So where's that actually coming from? And so here we are looking at information technology as well as the departments within IT. So this is the wrong title here. It says spaces by type, but this is in fact the spaces by department. And so you can see we have a bit of separation. These are all IT spaces, but different departments underneath that. And we can do the same thing. We can look at the second floor. Of course, again, because we kind of duplicated everything for this demo, it's not the most interesting difference between these two floors. But we can print these, of course. We can even print all of these together in batch and send those off if we needed to. So this chart playground is just another way of visualizing your data, especially if you are dealing with things sort of at a regional level or at even higher at a global level. Diving in directly to the floor plans may be a little bit too granular. So you may want to be able to start from a higher level and drill in from there. Okay, so we took a look at all the seating for IT, and now we have sort of two related things we're going to want to do with our last few minutes here. So what we want to do is we want to clear out some spaces. We're going to assume that maybe those people are going to be working from home or they have left the company. Somehow all of the folks in one area are now no longer seated there. And then we're going to use the Mac system to populate those seats. So let's start with the buildings again, just so we can clear up some spaces here. And let's dive into our floor plans. And we're going to go to the second floor so we can find some spaces to clear out. Now, before we actually do this clearing, I also wanted to show one more little thing that is kind of related. If somebody told you that this whole area here needed to be cleared of all their people, one of the things you might want to be able to do is send them back a list of, hey, these are the people in these seats. Are you certain these are people who are all going to be working from home, etc.? So the way we can do that is, once again, I'm going to hold down Shift. I'll drag a window around all this. It'll tell us we have 52 records selected, and we have a couple of batch actions that are available to us here. So, for example, we can take a look at all of those spaces. So we have 52 spaces here. Nothing super interesting here with the data that we're looking at, but we could certainly export this out to Excel if we wanted to send somebody the details of the spaces themselves. In our case, let's look at the occupants. So we have 41 occupants in those 50 some spaces, and that's expected, of course, because some of those spaces were empty. All of this, incidentally, is customizable, and in fact, we could do that live. If we wanted to insert columns, like this isn't showing exactly what we want, we could do that. But let's just go ahead and export them. So now we have an Excel spreadsheet with the 41 people who were in those spaces. We can send this off to the person who made the request and just validate that this was a real request. You sure that all these people are going to be working from home? You'll see that there is another little action here that says remove occupants. There's actually a warning about this here, and honestly, I don't know if it's even sane to have this button here. where you can affect this like this. I don't know if this would ever actually be required, but for our purposes, this is going to make it a little bit easier. So it does warn us and tell us that, hey, this is going to clear all these. Are you sure you know what you're doing? So now that we did that, again, I just want to call your attention to the fact that that all just happens instantly. It's all totally seamless. And now those are all vacant spaces. So we have prepared our area there, and now let's populate it by creating a Mac project. So of course this is a sample data set here, and our widgets are a little bit scarce at the moment, but that's okay. Let's just walk through the process. So we can come to submit a new project, and now let's enter a project name. If this were coming from like a work management solution or something like that, then often this would be filled in with some sort of unique code coming from that system. But because we're just creating this manually, we can just type in a friendly name so we can recognize it. Let's say that our deadline is in a month. Of course, we could just select this from a calendar instead. We will say, I am the requester. And let's actually start this project in requested status. Because we're a member of the Mac team, we can sort of advance it immediately. But if this were coming in from a lower rights user or some external source, it would be coming in under requested. So the only other things we really need to do is specify a destination and a description. So let's specify our destination, and that's going to be our second floor. We only need to specify the floor because this is sort of a group move. We don't actually need to select the individual space. And finally, let's just come down here to description and say, move some people to the second floor. Now, if this was a small project where perhaps we only had 1 or 2 people to move, we could actually queue those people up immediately. Not only that, if this was exposed to other users, so lower rights users were allowed to submit their own requests using this system, then they could type those people's names in as well. So that might save a little bit of time for the Mac team themselves. But in any case, that's all we need to get started. Let's hit submit. It'll tell us that it was in fact received. And if we now come back to our dashboard, you'll see that we do have a little badge now over new requests telling us that there's 1 waiting. So here is our new Move project. Let's dive in. And this is the sort of overall summary page for the Mac project. So you'll see that we have a couple of details up here at the top, some of which is grayed out, which is expected based on our status. And we have a number of little areas here of focus. So we can upload documents, we can chat with our team internally, and we can also look at the complete history of this project. We'll look at that a little bit more in a minute. Down below, of course, we have a variety of little controls here to input some additional detail. But kind of the main area of focus for us today is just going to be this status chain here. So it's worth pointing out that different customers will use a different set of statuses. You may have more statuses than this. For example, if there are approvals where the system needs to actually send an email out to somebody's supervisor to ask them if this is okay, that would be a different status. And we could get into those kinds of details during onboarding. Obviously, we will set this up exactly to follow the way that you guys want it to work. But in general, this has come in under requested status. We don't really need to do anything else at the moment. We're going to just go ahead and click on planning. Now, anytime you click on a status, it's going to tell you what's going to happen. Hey, this is going to tell the original requester that the status has been updated. In addition to that, you'll see that a couple of new areas have opened up, and so we're going to look at that in just a second. But if we dive into our history here, that was referencing, of course, this email that went out. So again, because I was the requester, I will get an email telling me that, hey, it's been updated and here are the details. But okay, we're ready to do the real planning here. Let's come into our planning list. We can import a list of people from Excel. If we're working with people offline, that's helpful. But really, the most helpful thing for us is going to be to add them manually. Now, manually could mean just typing them in, just like we saw on the original form. But really, the easiest thing for us, we're going to just dive into the floor plan. Let's make sure our Voyager building is selected. And now we're ready to select people to move. So we want to move people from our first floor to the second floor. So we've got all of our names here. In order to keep this kind of a reasonable project, we don't want to be clicking and clicking. Let's just do a subset of these people down here. So I'm going to grab these people here. You'll see that immediately they show up in my list over here, and I can say add and return. All right, so all of our people are already queued up. Now, when we get back to this form here, let's just go ahead and hide our task add area. You'll see that it tells us what is going on with these people. Actually, it tells us in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, everybody is grouped together here. They are all the same. They are all missing a destination. So you can see we have all their names, their email addresses, and we know where they are right now. But none of them have a destination yet. Kind of important for a move project. So we're going to do that momentarily. You'll also note that that is represented over here. So there's a little yellow icon telling us that this person is missing a destination. There's also a little calendar saying, hey, you don't have a move date for this person yet either. And so we'll resolve both of those in a minute. But let's start with the destinations. So because we're going to do all of these in batch, we could actually click on each person and assign them individually. That's not really an efficient way to do it. So let's click on this little menu, and let's say we want to set destinations. Now, because we specified the destination earlier as floor 2, it already knows where we want to be, and it's brought up this floor for us. Here are all of our people that we need to add, and the instructions are right here at the top. Click on a move task over here. Incidentally, it's called a Mac task instead of just like a person or movie, because we can actually queue up equipment like a copier or something like that. If that needed to be moved and it was in the system, that would be a separate move task. Same with if you want to move just like the contents of the space from one area to another. All of that can be done as well. But we just want to quickly assign all of these people. So all I have to do is I can click on one and I can click on the destination. You'll see that the instructions tell us we can hit escape to cancel. We can click on this message to cancel, and it's telling us who we are currently trying to assign. So as we assign it, it's just going to keep automatically selecting the next person. So you can see this is pretty quick. This is probably not necessarily reasonable in the real world, just in the sense that these people may not all be positioned all in a line like this, but you get the idea. You can also click directly on one person over here. I skipped Warren there, and maybe Warren is actually way over here. Okay, we have no pending moves left to assign, so we can go back to our planning area. And of course, everything updates, and now we've just got our one icon showing here, and it tells us no date to perform. Let's resolve that. I'm going to turn on checkboxes so we can do these all in batch. I'll say select all of them. I'll click on it. I'll say batch edit, and you'll see that there is a date to perform here. So let's say that's the April 4th. I hit save. I can return to my list, and now everything is marked as okay. We get green check marks all around. We have the people, we have their from location, and we have their to location. Let's back up. And so we're basically ready now to advance into the next status. And that next status is going to do a couple of things. So actually, I'll just go ahead and click on this, and it'll tell us some of those details. So it does tell us, hey, make sure you've got all of your estimated hours if you're doing that. This message, of course, would be customized for you guys depending on what is actually required for you. But use the scheduling area to make sure all of the things have been prepared. And then in bold, it's telling us what emails are going to be sent, which is often important. Sometimes a move may have already happened and you're just trying to record it through the Mac system, in which case you probably don't want all of those 16 people to receive emails telling them about an upcoming move. So let me just cancel that for the moment. You'll see down here at the bottom there is a skip notifications button. If I check that and come back up, you'll see that now in bold it says, hey, nobody's going to get any emails on this. So that's totally expected. So let's keep it on. No, we do not want to skip our notifications, and let's go ahead and execute that. So ready is telling us that maybe you're ready to produce your documentation. You're ready to get started on actually providing information to the folks who were actually going to do the move. And this is going to take a little bit of time. If we keep refreshing this, you'll see that these are going to start spilling down here. So what this is doing is all of these people will have received a message. Of course, this is not really sending an email, but you get the idea. A customizable body with instructions to them about what they are going to need to do. Down here, we can include, in this case, a calendar file that they can double click on, and it'll load it into Outlook or whatever else it is that they're using. We can also even send sort of a small picture showing them where they're going to end up. If they're not familiar with what, these desk numbers might be confusing, we can include also a picture of the location and sort of where that is on the floor in general. It's not loading right now, though. Okay, so all of those have been sent, and really we're basically done now. Let's go ahead and mark this as complete, and then we're going to verify that all those people did in fact get moved to where we were expecting them to. So let's hit OK. It's telling us the changes have been saved. And so now let's go the whole way back out to the dashboard. We have nothing in process. We have no new requests, but we're going to return to our space management dashboard, and let's dive into that one building, which of course is the second floor of Voyager. And we'll click on our second floor, and let's zoom in and verify that, yes, indeed, we have all of these people in their new seats, including our friend Warren way over here on the edge. And just like we saw earlier, if we, for some reason, realize that that was not what we really wanted to do, we can come into all contacts, we can go to our move history, and here are all those people that got moved via the Mac process. So once again, if we needed to push those people back to their original locations, we could totally do that.